Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Common Council meeting. Seeing everybody has checked in, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C, public comment. At this time, the mayor will recognize members of the public who have indicated their desire to address the council. Upon recognition by the mayor, persons may address the council from the podium first stating their name and address. Council may take action on emergency matters introduced by members of the public. Anyone from the public wish to address the council? Final call? All right, we'll go to item D. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the December 19, 2019 council meeting? A motion by Mr. Butke, a second by Mr. Hendler. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please vote. That motion carries. Staff updates. Any staff updates?
I just have one. Back in November, Councilmember Bargander brought to light the idea of whether or not it would be beneficial to extend city email accounts to members of citizen advisory committees. This actually came out of a discussion from a presentation we had back in September that dealt with ethics and other topics, but it was sort of uncovered at that time that there could be an issue with open records and other things by not having them on our email system, since we do communicate with them related to meetings. So I've done some work, spent a lot of time talking with staff leaders, talked to folks at the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, their legal counsel, had sent out a notice to my peers in other cities, talked with the city attorney as well. Not finding other cities that have done this, and just because other cities haven't done that doesn't mean that we shouldn't. But at staff level, I think we have some concern about a few things, including the cost of extending email accounts to all the various members of our boards, committees, and commissions that are citizens at large, if you will. The big issue really seems to be open records, the concern about someone, wondering if their private email account could be under review, if you will, for some things that they've transmitted related to their job on the advisory committees. So we kind of come up with, and I kind of got this out of my discussion a little bit with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, to maybe do something like a frequently asked questions, an FAQ sheet for all members of those bodies to explain to them the open records law and open meetings, and just make it clear to them that they are not to be doing that kind of activity. Really, the only thing that these people should get is maybe in some cases to get the agendas and related materials from the staff liaison for that committee. But just to advise them again, they really shouldn't be communicating with other members of the committee or members of the public by email anyway, apart from the meetings, and interact with them if they have questions about how that plays out. We don't want to see those folks getting into trouble. But it seems like the potential pitfalls from extending city email accounts and having them on our system outweighs the cost, outweighs the benefit of just trying to avoid that open records issue. So unless the council disagrees, I'd like to go forward and get something written up, share it with the city attorney, make sure that it appears to be clear, concise, and understandable, and get it out there to those folks so they understand and don't find themselves in a bad place later for having used email in a way that could be problematic. Any questions or concerns on that?
Mr. McSwain.
Yeah, I guess it would have to be pretty expensive for me to not think that it's worth it to give some protection to the people that are working on these committees.
Well, I don't have the exact cost in front of me. In fact, if this is going to be discussed as an agenda.
So that would be my, this was informative. I think you have that question. What we'll do is pick it up in the meeting, put it on an agenda at a future time. Not open.
Good point. No, and I'm sorry. And by asking if there are questions, I didn't mean to get a discussion going either. But let's go that route, what the city attorney suggested.
Any further staff updates?
I have nothing more.
Item F, mayor's comments. No mayor comments. Any council comments? Item G.
Yeah.
Mr. Butke.
I just want to thank Fire Chief Owen, and you had a fundraiser at McDonald's last week, and it was the funds were used to hopefully purchase some equipment. If you want to say something, please.
Yeah, definitely. My apologies. I was talking shop with the police chief. So yeah, this past Thursday, we were asked by McDonald's managers if we were interested in coming to work for a couple of hours at McDonald's, and in exchange, they would donate 10% of the proceeds towards the department. One of the things that we had put in the budget for 2020 was Freddie the fire truck. and that was taken out. That was a robot. But we had very good turnout by department staff. We brought in just over $500 in donations from McDonald's and the guests. That money went to Freddie, and Freddie has been ordered. So it's been good, but we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. One of our newer guys actually was a manager at McDonald's before he came, and he hopped in the back and started working right away, and it was like he never left. So we had a good time. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. Any further council comments? No? How about item H, reports from commissions, boards, and committees? Seeing none, we'll go to the item I, the consent agenda. Motion to receive and place on file approving all recommended actions in the consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Fire, a second by Mrs. Spiros. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please vote. That motion carries. We're going to move up item N to, and we're just going to move that up to the next presentation. So item N, report on the Safe Routes to School program presented by Bryce Hembrook, City Planner.
Thank you, Mayor. So each October, children from the Marshfield area schools participate in the Walk and Bike to School challenge. The challenge is aimed at encouraging healthy lifestyle choices and exercise while also promoting alternative modes of transportation to school. As part of the challenge, kids who walk or bike or exercise for 10 plus days are eligible for various prizes, and those that participated for over 20 days are eligible to win a bike. And so this challenge began in 2010 as a Safe Routes to School program, and it is still running because of the generous donations from our sponsors. They're the ones that keep this program going and to keep the prizes coming for the children. So far, we've given out 70 new bikes, almost 250 bike helmets, 1,675 T-shirts, and over 3,000 other prizes since this program has started. Although the weather was not the greatest in October, the students posted the second highest participation rate since the beginning of this program. So that's a great job. I believe it was 58.9%. 1,339 kids participated for at least one day in October, and over 500 students qualified to win a bike. So those are fantastic numbers. And we gave away 14 new bikes, 2 to each school. And then we also promoted alternative exercises in case they weren't able to walk or bike to school. In the case of Nasonville, it's rather dangerous to walk or bike to school to Nasonville, so we allow them to, switch it for other physical activities. So I would just like to go through some of the pictures here of some of the bike winners. So as you can see, the students always get excited. Sponsors are always excited. I know the parents are usually excited because they have one less Christmas present to buy. And then it's just a fun time. I wish I could match their enthusiasm when they see hear their name and they run up. So it's really a great time. And so, as you can see, there are plenty of winners. And so we would just like to, once again, thank our sponsors. They're the ones that keep this program running. They're the ones that provide the incentive for these kids to participate in this. So we'd like to thank Nasonville Dairy, Marshfield Clinic Health System, the Sports Den, Drexler Transport, Perry Franklin, Phelps Tire, and then Representative John Spiros and Councilmember Rebecca Spiros for all of their donations and for investing in the health of the youth in this community. We were going to have one other sponsor here, but it looks like they're not in attendance at the moment. But I would like to present a framed T-shirt as a thanks to the sponsors. So Mrs. Spiros, if you would like to come receive that. And then if we could just give a round of applause to the sponsors, especially the Spiros. Thank you very much. And then thank you. So yeah, thank you very much, and I'll look forward to running this next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Bryce. Mr. Becky, you had your, are you good?
Yes.
Great. All right. Item K, presentation plans for construction of the new Marshfield Utilities building project presented by Nick Cum, General Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank you and Steve for placing us on the agenda tonight so that we could cover this topic. I think it's a topic that's been in the works for many, many years. So I'm going to take some time here. We're going to go through multiple aspects of the project and talk about why we're here today and the cost and many different factors. Just before I jump in, tonight is just focused on information. We're not asking for any approval. That'll be something that we'll talk about later on when we get to the timeline. So we're going to cover multiple areas here, talk about the history. We'll have a little video tour for you to see, talk about a space needs study, the pool project and how we've collaborated, talk about the new building, dive into some drawings and video, talk about the why now, financial review, timeline, and stakeholder communication. Before I turn it over to Mike, I'd like to do a couple quick introductions, if I may, since we have our commissioners here. So we have Harry Borgman, Paul Kapla, John Schneider, and Mike Earbo, the commission president behind me. Dave Mueller is our fifth commissioner. Unfortunately, had a conflict, wasn't able to make it. Also in attendance is Kathy Lotzer and Ken Mueller, both staff, utility managers of the departments. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike now.
Thank you. So kicking us off, the Marshfield Utilities has been operating out of its current office since 1966. Prior to that, from 1904 to 1966, the utility operated out of a combination of the power plant that some of you may remember and City Hall, which was Tower Hall at that time. So that was 1904 to 1966. The current facility was built in 1965, occupied in 66, was built to accommodate the staffing levels, operational needs, customer demands of the mid-60s. Water office, which was in 1999 moved out of the current building because we'd outgrown the building. Moved out onto South Oak Avenue, if you're familiar with that is. Purchased that building for $235,000 back then. We expected it to be a 5-year solution while we worked on figuring out a building. Been 20 years. Facility improvement and expansion has been a topic of discussion for nearly 30 years at Marshfield Utilities. And I can only attest to that for the 8.5 years that I've been on the commission, but it was already well in discussion when I came on board. Over the years, numerous drawings of various layout changes and additions, along with several facility and space needs studies have been developed. Since 2013, we've explored remodeling an existing industrial building located on the east side of the city. We've explored building on a new green site located on the north side by the substation on McMillan. Ultimately, we decided that site would require extensive excavation due to the elevation, and that adding more traffic onto McMillan Street, especially with large vehicles that accelerate slowly and would create additional safety concerns, was not the best interest of the entire city. That site also represents potential future solar development for the utility because of the negatives of a building are the positives for a solar development, the slope and the direction. We looked at remodeling on the current site, and we looked at building new on the current site. Over this last year, the commission directed staff to focus efforts specifically on the current site. Building new on the current site has been determined to be the most cost-effective solution of that explored. The existing building and site is best kept as public property due to the adjacent pool, zoo, and park facilities. And the existing overhead electrical lines that surround that property the underground utilities, the substation, and the booster station on the site limit any other development opportunities if we were to move off-site. So given all that, Nick's got some pretty exciting stuff to show you about what we'd like to do to replace the building.
We understand that everyone has limited availability, and with that in mind, we put together a virtual tour. So you could tour the facilities on both the main office and the water office to see some of the challenges. The virtual tour is narrated, and it'll identify a number of those challenges or justification factors that the existing facilities contain. So, play this, hopefully. And I got to work on the volume, so bear with me. I had a quick run through before, but I'm not an expert on it.
This is Marshfield Utilities' main building located at 2000 South Central Avenue, just south of Hefco Pool. The building was built in 1966 and is over 50 years old. Prior to this building, staff were located at the power plant and City Hall, which is currently known as Tower Hall. This video will provide a virtual tour of the Marshfield Utilities main building and of the water office located on South Oak Avenue. Throughout the tour, we will cover the challenges we face at each facility. The customer parking lot space is small. Numerous times throughout the year, all of the spaces are full with customers. On average, each month, 3,100 customers pay their bills in person or by using the drop box. Due to the volume of vehicles and layout, navigating the parking lot can be challenging for customers. Using the front stairs and ramp can be difficult for some customers to use, particularly elderly or those in a wheelchair. In order to serve our customers consistently and efficiently, they must walk into the building, taking many steps to reach our customer service windows. The layout currently lacks convenient space for private conversations with customers or a restroom for our customers' use. During the past year, we have requested assistance from the police department multiple times due to unruly customers. The physical security measures in place provide a low level of comfort for our employees. Since the facility was built, customer demands and operations have changed. The water department was moved off-site, and over 10 office spaces have been added to meet demands. Future new positions will require the construction of additional offices. The restroom facilities are small, dated, and have ventilation issues. The lack of restrooms also creates additional challenges. Stairs are the only means to get between the floors. The facility was built to meet the codes and requirements from 50 years ago and prior to Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. Over the years, spaces have been repurposed to accommodate the needs. This has led to a segmented layout and department inefficiencies. This space serves as a locker room, meeting room, break room, and office area for our linemen. The space doesn't support tablets and other mobile solutions for our staff to serve our customers in the field. In addition, advancements to safety requirements have led to specialized flame retardant clothing and footwear solutions. The storage for these items is limited. The garage area was built to provide a dedicated shop area and support 10 utility vehicles. Currently, 17 vehicles are kept in this space. In addition, the size of the bucket trucks and vehicles is much larger today than 50 years ago. When linemen have to respond after hours for an outage, they may need to move vehicles to support and address the outage. This additional time to move vehicles leads to longer outages. The once dedicated shop area is now used to store vehicles. Due to a lack of space, some material, vehicles, and trailers are stored outside. The fleet contains a total of 45 vehicles and trailers with a number of them stored outdoors. The security is lacking, with people passing through our yard on a daily basis and occurrences of theft. In 1999, the water office was purchased. Moving the water department staff and equipment to this facility was considered a 5-year temporary solution. Here we are, 20 years later. Due to limited staff and operational demands, this site is not open to customers. Essentially, customers must make an appointment to meet with water utility staff. All deliveries of materials, parts, and equipment must be sent to the main office. This creates inefficiencies with transporting of material between the sites. The garage is completely full of material, vehicles, and equipment. The facility construction has the potential to be damaged during a severe weather event. This disruption could damage equipment, affect staff, and disrupt the ability to provide water that meets the needs of the community. Employee recruiting and retention correlates with workplace satisfaction. That can be driven by a modern facility. The updating of the pool and utility facility provides a total site upgrade, offers a south side economic development boost, and allows for collaborative solutions. The current facility is over 50 years old and structurally sound. However, we have outgrown its footprint, and due to the constraints of the overhead and underground utilities, along with the substation facility, remaining on the current site is the best long-term option. The utility industry has been stable and consistent for over 100 years. However, things are changing. As the utility industry starts a new chapter with changes in how electricity is generated, services offered, customer demands, and the impact of technology, we need to position the utility to be nimble to embrace and move as needed to respond to these opportunities and ensure the high level of service to our customers continues. A new facility is one step, one resource in the right direction to position Marshfield Utilities to serve our stakeholders for the next 50 years.
So each of those justification factors could be addressed individually. However, when you evaluate all the items together, an approach of a new facility will provide a better long-term solution than just minor fixes or a piecemeal solution. Space needs. A space needs study determines the space needed to meet the facility needs of an organization today and into the future. The current main office is just over 26,000 square feet, and the water office is just shy of 8,000 square feet, for a total of, as you can see, 33,900. Frischbach & Associates has been Marshfield Utilities architect for a number of years, and they completed a space needs study that indicated we needed about 77,500 square feet to accommodate not only today's needs, but future needs. The current design that you'll see in a few moments is approximately 82,600 square feet. You're probably asking yourself, why is there such a difference? Some of the specific items that cause an increase in the square footage from the existing facility to the new facility include, as was mentioned in the video, the original garage space was sized to accommodate 10 vehicles, and we currently have 17 in there, and we have a fleet of over 45. A formal shop area for repairing of equipment and vehicles. As you can see in the picture right now, we don't have that. It's basically used for vehicle storage. Larger vehicles, additional material, and new equipment have taken up additional space. The bucket truck or even the pickup truck of yesterday has a much different footprint than today's. Dedicated driving lane for vehicles in the garage area, and indoor and centrally located storage space for material. And some of that material we talked about earlier that's outdoors, we'll move that indoors. Redesigned and secure lobby space to protect our staff, public restrooms, and a conference room for our commission and other public meetings. Integration of the water department staff and equipment within the main facility. Doing an optimal layout so that we have departments adjoining each other for optimal efficiency. separate locker room and dedicated workspace for our field staff so they can accommodate mobile technology solutions and other needs. Dual purpose space for emergency operations and meetings were considered. Additional employees over the years, as we mentioned, we've added 10 offices, but we've also added staff. You know, as you look back, we've added the new generating plant on the southeast side of town. And obviously new technology has embraced all of us. So it's led to new staff for IT functions, along with regulatory compliance and other needs. In the design, we looked at flex space and offices to accommodate future needs. And we also included the ability for us to expand in the future if ever needed. So adding additional up and out. Pool project. Throughout the last year, Justin Capsterson and the Director of Parks and Rec and I have worked together along with our support teams to design and develop these two projects so that they'll work cohesively on the site. The layout allows the pool and utility to operate and support their respective customers while providing each facility the ability to expand in the future if needed. As you'll see in a few minutes, the finished floor elevations for the pool and the upper level of the utility office space will be nearly identical to the current facilities. The facilities will be closer together. However, that'll be mitigated by fencing, trees, and other additional landscape measures. Before jumping into the proposed facility drawings, I just want to take a moment to provide a quick reference on how the existing building is built into a hill. As you can see on the left side of the photo, that depicts that's our garage and lower level offices. On the right side is Central Avenue and the customer entrance or an upper floor level of our building. It sometimes can be deceiving if you're only driving down Central and not seeing that there's actually a lower level in the back. And that's obviously some of the great challenges that both the pool and us are experiencing as we're looking at doing this design. The new building that we're proposing, it will be configured in a similar manner with basically an upper and a lower level. The development of the new facility focused on security, efficiency, flow, and adequate space, as I mentioned, for today and tomorrow, along with options to expand, essentially addressing the areas of concern that we covered. I apologize for the eye chart, but this is the layout that we're proposing at this time. The layout shows the proposed pool facility and the new utility building. Each facility would maintain their own fencing and separation. Due to the elevation challenges faced by both projects, there would be a retaining wall between them to help provide natural light to our lower level offices. We are exploring with the pool project a single detention pond on the site. Instead of having each individual one, we would look at just having one. I'm not sure, does this mouse show up? Oh, wonderful. So the retaining wall I'm talking about would be in this area here, and it'll be shown later on in the video. You'll get a little better idea of what that looks like. And then right now we're just showing the detention pond in this area. It's basically a placeholder. It will likely need to be altered and moved slightly, but it would accommodate both the pool project and the utility project. The entire back of the building and lot would be fenced in to provide the security that we're looking for. And the fencing is something that would run around the outside. Employee parking would be on the west side over here, on the north side, and also in the south side or on the east side of Central Avenue. Traffic flow for employee vehicles and utility vehicles would be directed towards the south entrance located off Central. So as many of you know, there's the entrance into the pool. We would come off of Central Avenue and come in through this area for our employees that are parking in the back. The blue hashed area that you see denotes the existing facility. The front red outline is the 2 floors for office space. So that would be in this area here, again, built into the hill. And then this larger red area is the garage and material storage area. Customers would access the site off of Central Avenue just as they do now. However, we would have separate entrances and exits. Building of the facility would be comprised of multiple phases to minimize operational and customer access disruptions. Phase 1 of the building, which is the tan area on the right, would be completed first and would allow us then to move into that facility with our office functions and customer service. And we would demo the existing facility, and then phase 2 would be building of the remainder of the garage space. Some interior drawings. This just shows the garage and material storage area. On the top of the page are some of our larger trucks, like our bucket trucks and digger trucks and backhoes and such. In the middle, these box areas, material. And then down at the bottom here is more of the smaller vehicles, your 1 tons and your pickup trucks. And also we would have some general storage and tools areas in that area as well. You can see the material is optimized to be in the middle of all the vehicles, so it makes it easy to restock. The garage space is positioned to allow us to expand if ever needed in the future to the west and also to the south. This drawing shows the first floor, which has office space, meeting rooms, bullpens for our field staff, locker room facilities, and mechanical space. This is the second floor or the upper floor where customers would enter. This has office space, the customer lobby, also a commission meeting room and restrooms. And then finally, we have the roof. We've incorporated a small area for an outdoor patio or garden for employees. And also the roof space would accommodate future offices if we needed to build up in the future. So I know how much everyone likes videos, so I'll show you a quick video that will do a walkthrough. It's half as long as the first one and kind of give you an idea of what the inside would look like and some of the outside. Just walking in the lobby, as you see, there was no steps in. Coming into a secure area where to greet customers and work with their needs, making bill payments and other arrangements. We'd also use it as a technology space to help educate our customers on different opportunities and different products. And we have a convenient there's a restroom in that area as well. Now we're walking into a main conference room that would be for our commission meetings and other public meetings. It has a kitchenette off the side, and we really like coffee, so you can see we've got 3 coffee makers there. You're walking down the hallway with different storage rooms, some restrooms, and then you're walking into our customer service area where we have different customer account specialists located. And then we get into the hallway with more conference rooms and meeting rooms and office spaces. And I'll show you a quick snapshot of mine. You'll notice I have a big lounging chair in the back so I can sleep during the day and take a siesta. The remainder of that floor is mostly just office spaces and a break room and things of that nature. Now we're going into the lower level. Again, more offices to accommodate our staff. Flex spaces to be able to expand in the future if needed. Building more offices, copiers. Here we have what we call a bullpen. These would be for our electric staff, our field staff in the electric department. And then we have another, there's a break room there, and then there's the field staff, our water staff in that area. Again, now we're passing across the locker rooms here on the left and right for male and female. And now we're walking into the garage space. You can see the vehicles. The white lines on the top are just lights. You can notice that there are windows as it looks to the outside wall high, allow a lot of natural light. Again, you can see the material storage that's in the middle. To the left, I'm going to do a quick walk around here one. There's the doors for the bigger vehicles so they have direct access in and out, minimizing the amount of driving space. Obviously, every square foot costs money, so the less driving space, the better. more material, equipment, trailers, vehicles. Now we'll do a quick walk outside. Just want to pause it there. Obviously, we'd have the pool facility would be off to the left. You can kind of see that retaining wall that I mentioned earlier. That just it's in this area right here, and just again because of the grading challenges from central to the east, or sorry, to the west, we have to hold back some dirt, and that would provide some natural light to lower offices there. And you can see we're kind of going around, seeing some of the employee parking lots, overhead garage doors for the big trucks. The roof would be able to accommodate a solar system in the future. Or if the budget allows, we would do that sooner. And you can see the additional parking that we don't currently have in the front for, again, for staff along with customers and to accommodate meetings. So why now? As we mentioned previously, this project's been under consideration for some time. So why now? Obviously, we've talked about the justification factors, the issues and challenges that we're faced with, and those need to be addressed. Currently, as many of you know, the interest rates related to borrowing are at near lows or all-time lows. As you can see, every 0.5% of savings we can gain from a lower interest rate saves us $1 million or saves our customers $1 million over the 20-year life of the borrowing. Many of you are aware of the power plant. The power plant has some refinancing of its bonds that are coming due here in 2020 and either in 2020 or 2021. And it has a higher interest rate. So we should be able to recognize some savings if we, when we go through the refinancing of those. And that ultimately leads to lessens the overall rate impact of our customers. In 2017, the tax cuts decreased corporate tax rates from 35% to 21%. This reduced our costs from our wholesale provider for energy and also the transmission provider. MU passes these savings directly to our customers on their monthly bills through their called the Power Cost Adjustment Clause or PCAC. This has been an approximate 2.2% reduction to our customer bills. Annual construction inflation increased cost for material and labor for each year the project's delayed. This is estimated to increase costs 3 to 5%. Overlap construction schedule and collaborative solutions with the pool will likely provide a cost savings. And as was mentioned in the video, this is a total site upgrade with pool project, and it'll help provide a south side development boost or lift. And now the fun slide. The overall cost. At this point, it's an estimate, but the overall cost estimate is at $17.5 million. As you can see, the all-in cost that includes all of the items is a little over $200 a square foot. As part of that estimate, the office space was estimated at $204 a square foot, and garage and storage is estimated at $109. Also included in that $17.5 is an infrastructure relocation. There's a number of utilities, transmission lines, underground storm lines, fiber optic cable, power lines that need to be relocated to help accommodate this project. Obviously, demolition of the existing facility is included in there and estimated at $400,000. And then we have inflation in there as well. We'll get into the construction schedule here in a few minutes, but that includes another $900,000. And then we have another $900,000 contingency, which represents about 6% if you exclude the inflation and the architectural fees. Bidding, as we all know, we have to publicly bid all projects. And obviously, we'll go through the proper process to bid every project and bid all the aspects of the project. And the commission has to approve all of the bids before we would move forward. So if the bids come back higher than we expect, we could always decide to rebid, change the scope, maybe take a different direction or cancel the project. Rate impact. Our preliminary estimate on rate impact due to the building project is 5 to 6%. which equates to about $4 per month for a residential electric. At this time, we're not, no impact on the water rates. There are a number of factors that could lead to electric rate change that's higher or lower than this projection. Obviously, the final project cost is one main item, and the interest rate that we receive when we receive financing for the project. I mentioned earlier the refinancing of some existing debt that obviously gets rolled into this as well, and that could have an impact. The Public Service Commission authorized rate of return for electric utilities at the time of rate filing. Right now, we have a 5.1% rate of return. That's how our numbers are, our revenues and expenses. They look at a 5.1% rate of return. However, if we were going today, they would put us at a new benchmark, and that could lower or raise it. We've seen it as high as 6, and we've seen as low as 4.9. Obviously, those numbers impact how the rates would be to their customers. The 2.2% wholesale power cost savings mentioned earlier could negate some of the rate increase and become revenue for MU. But for example, instead of a 5.2% rate increase, when you net that with the current reduction, you're looking at a 3%. And I think the big thing to keep in mind is that even with the increase, and we've been very fortunate for a number of years, our rates are very competitive. Investor-owned utilities and cooperatives in the area, their rates are 20% higher than ours, 20 to 25%. So if you go outside the city limits a few miles and you maybe know some people out there, the rates are considerably higher than what ours are now. And it also, we, even with the increase, remain very competitive in the top 25% of the, actually less than that, of the municipal utilities. Pilots, obviously we need to pay a payment in lieu of tax back to this the city. It's estimated to increase the pilot payment of roughly $280,000 annually, or a net of $55,000 if the dividend is discontinued, as discussed previously. The PSCW rate case overview. Public Service Commission of Wisconsin requires us to gain construction authorization prior to breaking ground. So this would be requested, assuming we have all the local approvals. That would be one of the first steps that we have to complete, is to make sure the state is okay with the project moving forward as well. A rate case cannot be submitted until the year in which the building project is completed. And that would be right now we're forecasting that in 2022, late 2022. So the rates wouldn't actually be effective until 2023. And as you can see, that's a number of years down the road. And ultimately, the PSC determines the final rate adjustments after we file the rating. Financing options and overview. Just as the city staff has worked with others, we at the utility have as well on different projects. We would engage them as well in this process and looking at the different financing options that are available to try to determine the least cost long-term solution. And as part of that, we would look at the existing outstanding debt and that refinancing. We look at traditional long-term borrowing in the 20 years that we're used to, or another solution that may be available to us is we would issue short-term construction loans to get us through the construction. And then we would use what's called the Rural Utility Service, RUS, for long-term loans. The RUS is a federal program that's part of the Department of Agriculture at the United States. And the program provides funds at low interest rates to support infrastructure and infrastructure improvements to rural communities like Marshfield. Timeline. The key to the timeline that we put together is sending out bid documents in December of this year. This would ensure we get the highest level of contractor interest, lead to the greatest number of bid responses, and ultimately the best pricing to support this project. So in order to meet that date, we need to provide our architect and engineer roughly 9 to 10 months so they can help develop. They have the time to develop the bid documents. As far as the highlights on the timeline there, you can see we're here today on the 14th with a presentation for you. We're looking at having a special commission meeting on the 24th of this month for approval of this project. I would come back to you on the 28th to let you know how the status of that meeting went, and also provide you any updates that have occurred or answer any questions that you may have. And on February 11th, the meeting minutes from that special meeting would be on your consent agenda along with the job order. And, for your discretion on approval. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'd go in as soon as we could to get the Public Service Commission approval. We'd start working with Elders on the financing. We'd look to get commission approval on our bids a year from now. And then we would get the financing approved in March next year, again, needing both the commission and council's approval. And then the construction timeline would start then as soon as financing has been secured. And it's roughly an 18 to 21 month construction project schedule. And as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at July of 2022, the year in which the building would be complete, as being when we go in for a rate case. And it usually takes 6 to 12 months for them to approve and provide the results. Almost to the end. Stakeholder communication, the building topic has been and will continue to be discussed and reviewed during a number of the commission meetings and obviously this council meeting and upcoming council meetings. The videos and the other resources will be available to our customers. We've added a monitor in our lobby that's playing the videos and other items. We're updating our website right now to give customers links. We're going to use Facebook. Obviously, this meeting is taped and accessible to customers. I've also talked with Tom about setting up a time to come in and do a taping talk on this topic as well. And ultimately, if customers alike, they're able to give us a call, and we'll make arrangements to have meeting or to provide tours or a discussion on the project. And I've got the number up there, so they call in and ask for my executive assistant, and we'll make the arrangements. So I think that's my last slide. Did you have any something on?
Nick's given you guys and ladies a ton of detail. You know, this project's been under discussion for a number of years. The building's 50 years old. It's well maintained. It's functionally obsolete and outgrown. It's time. And we look forward to your approval in a couple weeks.
Thank you. Mr. Butke.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, Nick, why wouldn't the water rates be being affected for that? That will be part of that new building, where it is now, it's a separate building.
Yeah. So it's, I don't want to get too far in the weeds here with you, but ultimately, when we talked to the Public Service Commission in Wisconsin on this project, they indicated the rent, essentially the water utility pays rent to the electric utility to be in the facility. It's owned by the electric, water pays rent. They've indicated that the allocation method that we use to determine that rent does not need to change, even though we'd be doing a new building. But from a simplicity for our customers, we think it makes sense just to put everything on the electric, let water stay as it is. Water has its own challenges at this time, and I guess that was the reason.
Another thing, where you have the water department now, you would be able to sell that building?
Yeah, there'd be a number of options.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's money coming back in.
Are you interested?
Put some proposals out there. The other thing for Steve probably is, I think we need to have Ron talk to us, our finance guy, and see how that's going to affect our borrowing for other projects and all the details involved with that.
Yeah, we have talked about that a little bit. Just to put it out at a high level, the borrowing they're talking about won't affect our debt load. It's not city general obligation debt. It's debt through the utility, through the revenue being paid back by the revenue of user fees. It does affect what's called bank qualification. I think we've talked about this before. Whenever you go through $10 million, beyond $10 million of borrowing in a given year, which will happen whatever year they did this, it doesn't matter because their project is more than $10 million. It does have a potential impact on the interest rate and the number of borrows we get for our bondholders that would try to get our bonds for general borrowing. It's hard to say what that interest rate change or the number of bidders on our bonds might be. It's not estimated to be a whole lot, but again, whatever year they pick, 2021, 22, 23, it's a year that will blow through that $10 million total debt that ties back in some way to the city. Other than that, it really shouldn't affect us at all, Tom.
Okay.
And just
one last thing from me. I want to commend the utility, Nick and staff, and the Park and Rec for coming together to hopefully get this worked out where it sounds like you've been working together, and that's nice to hear.
And if I may, we've also worked with Steve and Ron on financing. We've worked with Dan and his team from the DRT. So we've been working with all the city departments to try to, I'm sure many of you have watched the video or the home shows where they show the existing facility and then they give you a rendering and then the actual. And we've been trying to do as much as we can, at least on the front end, to get some of those big, issues out of the way as far as location and elevations and all kinds of stuff. So but we've been working together very nicely so far.
Thank you. Mr. Jokic.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. It's a long time coming, and I know you guys have put a lot of effort into this. One thing I'd like to just, for the benefit of the public and a review for us, going back to the site plan you have, can you review some of the limitations as to that affected why the building is located where it's at? I know there are issues, but for the general public, just wanted to review that. I'm not sure I heard you talk about that in this presentation, and I think that's an important point.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, I don't have the drawing that shows all the utility conflicts, but this will give you some sense.
That's what I'm getting at, is that there's a reason why this building is close to the pool with a lot of green space to the south, and I understand the limitations you're at. But for the benefit of the general public who don't know that, I think if you can't show it, tonight, I would recommend you probably somehow get that point across, because that's always going to be the question. Like, okay, you have all this green space, why can't you build there? And obviously there are limitations there, but it'd be good for the general public to have an understanding of that. Sure. I don't know if you can review some of that without having the actual drawing or not, but.
Yeah, I think I'll touch on it. I think that, in the back, as many of you know, there's a substation. I'm kind of circling a little bit here with my mouse. Obviously, that's one of the main substations that we have in the city, and relocation of that would just is cost prohibitive. You're talking many times the cost of this project that we're bringing forth today to relocate that facility. So that's one of the challenges that we have on this site. There's a number of underground storm, water and sanitary lines on the grounds that kind of push us into where we are. But ultimately, probably the biggest issue, and it's denoted by these red lines that you see both on the south and the west. Those are the setback lines that we have to maintain from the power lines that are there. On the south and on the west, not only there are our lines, but they're also owned by American Transmission Company. And as part of the project, we're actually going to move the lines that run north and south along this line further west to give us more space. That was that $900,000 that I talked about relocation. That line, those red lines are the setback that we need to maintain from those power lines to put any infrastructure. So that kind of, as you can see, between that and the setback from central, the red line to the north with the pool is just an arbitrary line that one has been moved back and forth. But the other three are really the ones that kind of box us into the location and to the layout that we've presented.
Thank you. Mr. Witzel.
Thank you. One of the things I appreciate about this plan is that there's a lot of thought put into the future as well. One of the things that concerned me when I first heard of this plan, this two-story building and all this, was that it's going to be a bulking building that's overshadowing the pool. But I've come to realize that really the first floor is sort of underground from Central Avenue perspective. So I think that's a really nice concept. Really, the height of the new building is not much different than the height of the current building. The second floor is really, first floor is really basement, sort of, from Central Avenue's perspective, while second floor is really kind of first floor. But I do appreciate the fact that the construction plan is to provide with the option of potentially building up one more flight to make it, from Central's perspective, was two-story, and then, of course, to expand garage space as needed. So the planning for the future, I think it's really, really key. It's not just being short-sighted, saying this is what we need for now and for the near future, but to say, ultimately, down the road, we may need more, and we're set for that. The other thing I would like to comment or say to my fellow council members is that if you have not had the opportunity to tour the current building, I think only a few of us have actually toured that. I would really strongly recommend getting over there. I'm sure Nick would gladly meet with you, and I'm sure he'd even roll out some of the fancy drawings that show a little more detail and go through some of those if you wish. But I think to see, I've been to that building many, many times for a lot of commission meetings. I didn't really realize until I had the opportunity to really walk around and get the tour of what the current situation is. And of course, I haven't had the opportunity yet to see the Oak Street Acton building. But I think it's really, really important for council members to get an opportunity to get in there and take a look at what the current facility looks like.
Thank you. Mr. Hendler.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to really thank the commission finally getting serious and undertaking the project. I think it's long overdue. I agree with what you're saying. And there seems to be a lot of thought into how this process should progress. For example, you're dealing with our finance department, our parks and reg, and of course the pool commission. And most importantly, I think, is the conscientious effort to help maintain the increase to our citizens in this community. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Any further questions? No? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item L, first reading of ordinance number 1424, revising section 14-7216B of the Marshfield Municipal Code related to the sewer service charges, presented by Dan Connect, Public Works Director.
Thank you. I do not have a video. This ordinance change relates to the fee schedule and removing certain items that are in the fee schedule from being within the municipal code, and they relate to holding tank, portable toilet waste fees that have historically been in the municipal code. When we moved away from those fees being in the municipal code, these were overlooked. So this is kind of a housekeeping ordinance. Again, they would simply remove those fees from the municipal code. They are already in the fee schedule, so at this point in time, they're actually duplicated. Tonight is just the first reading. Final action would be scheduled 2 weeks from tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Dan? Seeing none, we'll go on to item M. Discuss current regulations pertaining to the operation of short-term rental housing in the city of Marshfield, presented by Bryce Hembrook, City Planner.
Thank you, Mayor. In December's Plan Commission meeting, we discussed this topic, and the Plan Commission wanted to receive some feedback from the council as how they want to direct staff when we prepare our ordinance. So I'll just quickly go through. The state has recently made some changes on how a municipality can or cannot regulate a short-term rental. And so a short-term rental is considered to be, let me find the official definition from the state, a residential dwelling that is offered for rent for a fee and for fewer than 29 days. And so currently our restrictions are rather restrictive. We only allow these short-term rentals in mixed-use districts at the moment. This would be 4 zoning districts, and most of the buildings, there's not that many single-family residences in these mixed-use districts. So the amount of people that could actually go for a conditional use right away and get approved for this short-term rental is pretty small in the city. And also they could try to rezone and receive a conditional use permit, but this is a long process and some of them might not be able to be approved. So we do need to make some changes. As to what those changes are is what we'll be discussing. So the new state requirements, local governments can regulate but cannot prohibit short-term rentals. A municipality is unable to ban the rental of a residential dwelling for a period of 7 days or longer consecutively. Municipalities are able to ban nightly rentals or rentals less than 7 consecutive days. So you can ban 1 day or a weekend. We would not be able to go over 7 days. We can still place reasonable regulations on these short-term rentals. And we can also have conditional use permits that would allow for the council and the plan commission to review and approve and add some conditions if needed. However, once again, we can add any requirements for a conditional use cannot be overly restrictive. So for example, you couldn't have a regulation saying no short-term rental shall be within 3 miles of another one, because that would basically allow just 2 or 1 or 2 short-term rentals in the city. So that would be considered overly restrictive. The municipality can limit the total number of days that a dwelling unit can be rented to 180 days or more. So you can limit it to 200 days, 250, but you would not be able to go underneath that 180 threshold. Owners of short-term rentals are required to collect state sales and use tax and any room tax that is required by any county or local governments. So we can require to collect the room taxes. And then anyone who manages or operates a short-term rental for more than 10 nights each year is now required to obtain a license from the state. And then both Wood County and Marathon County require licenses for these short-term rentals. They inspect and provide the license. The fees they vary depending on which county. So currently there is only one officially zoned and approved short-term rental in the city. It's hard to tell if they're actually still in operation because we did not see them on any of the sites. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't, renting out their property for short-term use. Staff looked at various sites such as Airbnb, VRBO, several times to try to get an idea as to how many properties we have like this in our city. It's kind of hard to tell exactly because when you look on these sites, they give you a general vicinity that these properties are located at. And some of them were located near the city limit, so they may be in the town, they may be in the city. The other thing is too, if there's no exterior photos, it would be hard for the city staff to determine where exactly the house is. It gives you a range of a couple blocks. So it's kind of hard for us to track exactly where they are. At one time, we found that there was 12, but on average, we find about 5 listings. We also wanted to mention that there are some listings that advertise that they only allow for renting 30 days or more. So some of them might actually be conforming to our code right now. So as I mentioned, tracking short-term rentals can be kind of difficult for staff and also time-consuming. I also included some additional information in the staff report if you guys are wondering about the differences between certain uses such as boarding house, short-term rental, long-term rental, and bed and breakfast. I also included some information on what other municipalities do for this land use, and then we also included some possible zoning regulations that we could apply to if we do a conditional use requirement or a license, we can require these zoning regulations. So as I discussed, this topic went to the Plan Commission, and they were presented 4 options, and they recommended option 3. However, they wanted to first receive feedback from the council. So what I'm going to do is I'll go over these 4 options and then gather your input, and then we'd bring this back to Plan Commission. Plan Commission would then make a recommendation to tell staff how to proceed. To tell staff how to proceed, and then we would come back the next time. So with that, we have option 1 would be to not regulate short-term rentals at the local level. The property owner would still need licenses and inspections from the state and county level. At this point, we could also require room tax collection. However, without a license program or a permitting process, it's going to be hard to determine, who's not paying their room tax. Option 2 would be to allow short-term rentals as an accessory land use permitted by right in all zoning districts and create a license for short-term rental owners or managers who plan to rent out their property for 7 to 29 consecutive days. This would be matching the state requirements and essentially nothing more. Main purpose of creating a license is to track where these rentals will be located and to collect local room taxes. Inspections for health and safety would be completed on the state and county level. Thus, we wouldn't necessarily need to provide any additional inspections. And then we can include any zoning related regulations as well. Option 3, this is the one that the Plan Commission recommended and staff recommended to the Plan Commission. It's essentially similar to option 2 in the fact that we would create a license for these uses. However, this would allow for less than 7 days. So we could either choose to have, no minimum at all, so they could rent out a nightly, or you could do a 3-day, 3 to 29 days is allowed. Anything under 3 would not be allowed. This would allow for, allowing rentals for with no minimum consecutive days would be the easiest options in terms of tracking and ensuring that renters are following regulations. Once again, it's kind of hard for city staff to determine if people are renting out their short-term rental for 6 days compared to 7 days. So it would just add some added feedback and, added, investigation. We could always keep I think we can require the owners to keep a log of the renters that come in. But that would be one of the steps that we would mention in our process if that's something that you guys would like to see. Option 4 would be to continue to regulate this land use as a conditional use, but add to all zoning districts. This allows for the Plan Commission and Common Council to have, to be able to review the requests and recommend new regulations if they are considered reasonable and measurable. The city can choose to only allow the 7 to 29 consecutive days or less, as mentioned before. This would significantly increase the cost to the applicant and increases the amount of staff time necessary to prepare such reports and for us to come to Plan Commission and Common Council meetings. So with that, the recommended action is to provide direction to staff on which to pursue and then to send back to Plan Commission for discussion.
Thank you. Mr. Bucky.
First of all, I don't think they would be used that much. Just my idea. I'm not crazy about this. We have motels. We're getting another new one in town. That's what motels are for. They are the ones that give us the most room tax, are the motels, and then we're going to put it out to other people. So I guess I would like to know what our local motels think of all of this as well. Did you have any idea, Bryce? Did you get any feedback from them?
I did not receive any feedback from them. I'm sure that they have some sort of opinion. I know from other places, one of the big topics is that short-term rental owners were getting away with not collecting the room taxes and getting away from that. So in those communities, the hotel and motel owners were at least happy that some sort of tracking was happening. As to ours, I can't really speak on how they feel.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wouldn't have a problem. And there are times when you got events in Marshfield that all the motel rooms are full. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have a problem with it then.
Right.
If people wanted to rent it out, for this instance, but I'm just not crazy about the whole thing, but it sounds like we don't have much to say about it.
Correct. In terms of if they want to rent out for more than a week, we don't really have much say, except for you can, require some requirements, but you'd have to at least allow them.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. I'd like to use these words quality of
I don't think it's
fully in favor of this.
Thank you, Mr. Witzel.
Thank you. I guess I just have a real quick question. Talking about 3 to 29 and that I'm assuming, or 7 to 29 or 1 to 20, less than 29 or less than 30 if the law changes. That's just simply to consider it to be a short-term rental. If a person owned a house and wanted to use that same property for longer than 30, that would still be allowed in these situations?
Correct.
Okay, because I'm just thinking, there's times during the year when there's a lot of events and people want to come and they want to spend a weekend or a week or whatever else. But then there's times of the year when really there's not as many events, and with businesses needing to have some of their staff that come and work for a few months under contract have a place as well. I think having both options is nice. In response to Mr. Butke's comment, I do see that there is a need for these in certain instances, not just when rooms are full, but there are people who have health or dietary needs that the motel, hotel room just cannot provide. And restaurants cannot provide because they're very restrictive needs. So I think having a house that they can rent for a weekend, for a week, those kinds of things, I think that that's a great thing. I guess I would be in favor of option 3. I don't know what 1 day is necessary. 3 minimum would be great. But I'm not necessarily opposed to just leaving it open.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fisher.
That went much faster than I thought. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would essentially echo one comment that Alderman Witzel made. I think there's some positives to this. I understand that obviously maybe hotels might have an issue with this, but competition is always a good thing. So I think we need to look at that. I know I can speak for myself with having a family of 5. Hotels can be sometimes not so desirable. So having a house where you can spread out and I can get away from my kids from time to time is always a good thing. So I see positives in this. I think how this comes about, I'm still curious about. So I'm very supportive of the idea, more just concerned, maybe is the best word, that we don't over-regulate, but have a basis so that we can at least have a better understanding of what we're dealing with as far as numbers. So that would be my feedback.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Hendler. It's your...
Thank you. There it is. I agree with Mr. Peschel. I've been in those situations already too, even in Europe, and we've had excellent services with that. And I am of the belief that this is something that's going to be with us, and I think having some sort of regulation regarding that is better than no regulation at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Witzel, your motion?
I would move to send option 3 back to Planning Commission for further review.
And there is a second by Mr. Fire. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please vote. And that motion carries 9-1. Item O, adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statutes Chapter 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. Discuss possible labor agreement with the fire union, and closed session under Wisconsin Statutes Chapter 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, review employment-related claims against the city. Motion to go into closed session by Mrs. Spiros, a second by Mr. Peschel. Seeing no discussion, please vote. That motion carries. Take a 5.
Oh, ouch.
Maybe I'm the one that's getting older and I can't see it.
That was a really clever way to
Just
say
threw
that.
you.
No, I know. I appreciate that.
Show me what that transmission's like. Are
We
we
have to
okay
vote, we
to
have to
approve?
vote, right? We're all present? No. Oh, we already voted?
Oh, I think we just got it.
Okay. And they're back on.
All right, we're back in open session. Item Q, is there a motion to approve the agreement between the City of Marshfield and the firefighters Local 1021 IAFF for 2019 through 2021? A motion by Mr. Butke, a second by Mr. Hendler. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please vote. Motion carries 10-0. Item R, suggested items for future agendas. Oh, Mr. Witzel.
I think I jumped on it before, Mr. McSwain. I think I'd like to have a little more discussion on that email situation, on what the costs actually would be and why we're somewhat reluctant to do that.
Thank you, Mr. McSwain. I thought, okay. Okay.
All right, we'll make that an agenda item for the next meeting.
You have a motion, Mr. Witzel?
Yeah, to adjourn.
Okay, motion. And a second by Mr. Butke. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned.